Greetings and welcome back to room 303 in our chats with Emily as we are calling our readings through the poetry of Emily Dickinson. We are in the Johnson edition. We turned now to poem 452, The Malay Took the Pearl. Now, this poem has been the subject of so much debate among Emily scholars. Some argue you have to know the background to be able to read this poem, biographical background. Others arguing, no, this is just a kind of universal allegory of what it's like to lose the thing that you actually care the most about. In this case, of course, it's a pearl. We're not going to have Emily specifically speaking in this poem, but rather speaking as an earl, and so that will make this poem quite fascinating as well. The scholar Johnson has argued that maybe the source for this whole idea of this poem comes from the reading by Emily of Browning's Paracelsus, in which the concluding lines of the protagonist in part one, Paracelsus aspires, reads like this: "Are there not, Festus, are there not, dear Michael, 2 points in the adventure of the diver? One, when a beggar, he prepares to plunge. One, when a prince, he rises with his pearl. Festus, I plunge." Now, as we get into this discussion of whether this poem is in fact autobiographical or not, we're also going to have to grapple with Emily's only use of the word Negro. Is Emily racist? Is she just borrowing heavily from the stereotypes of her day? All of that will as well be a part of our discussion here. Now, our assumptions are that you've been following our stuff at learnstrong.net, down that left-hand side, Chats with Emily as our playlist. Hopefully you worked through our set of introductory comments when we talked a little bit about the tension in Emily's biography. Emily has a friend, some have said lover, named Sue. She also has a brother named Austin, and Sue and Austin decide not only that they will be together, but they will get married, and then they live next door next to Emily. And there is a longing on the part, what many argue, a longing on the part for Emily to go back to the way it was before, when she had Sue all to herself, the pearl possibly of this poem. I'm hopeful as well that you've already been able to read and study our previous 451 poems. We just finished with 451, The Outer from the Inner. And if you have, then you'll maybe remember a few poems, like, for example, do you remember poem 84? Her breast is fit for pearls, but I was not a diver. Her brow is fit for thrones, but I have not a crest. Her heart is fit for home. I, a sparrow, build there, sweet of twigs and twine, my perennial nest. Or when we did 424, you'll maybe remember it this way. Removed from accident of loss by accident of gain, befalling not my simple days myself had just to earn, of riches as unconscious as is the brown Malay of pearls in eastern waters, marked his. What holiday would stir his slow conception, had he the power to dream that but the dower's fraction awaited even him? Some have argued that Emily read a Harper's article about Malaysian divers going under the water and securing pearls. Now, many have said that you really do have to recognize in this poem that Austin is the Malay, the swarthy one, later it will be the Negro, who will take the pearl, obviously Sue, and Sue is referenced as a pearl in 270, 299, 693, and 424, so we're in good grounds to make that assumption. And then Emily is the earl that wants to go maybe for the pearl, but is too afraid of the sea. And then, of course, we could make the argument this is a poem about the forbidden fruit, which is in fact Sue. In many ways, we're just back to a very earlier study. You'll remember when we played the game of Success is Counted Sweetest by Those Who Ne'er Succeed, poem, you'll remember 67. In other words, Emily knows what success is because she hasn't succeeded. Now, again, you could make that observation from the fact that she's trying to publish, and then in other ways, no, this is not about publishing, this is about possession, and Emily never gets the pearl. By the way, notice the Malay doesn't steal the pearl, he takes the pearl. The poem reads like this: The Malay took the pearl, not I, the earl. I feared the sea too much, unsanctified to touch. Praying that I might be worthy, the destiny, the swarthy fellow swum and bore my jewel home, home to the hut. What lot had I the jewel got, borne on a dusky breast? I had not deemed a vest of amber fit. The Negro never knew I wooed it too, to gain or be undone alike to him. 1. So much is made of the conclusion of this poem. Notice the syntax of this poem and all these dashes makes it difficult to read. It's almost like breathless. In other words, it's almost as if she is saying, I wish that I could have had the ability, but I didn't, and I lacked it, and I feared in some way. The sea will be the metaphor here. And I think it works powerfully. We're back to 424 with our Malay, and then this idea of taking the pearl, some will call it stealing. Later it will be bore my jewel. And in many ways we're back to poem 299 as well. And again, the pearl, and Sue is the pearl, we've had it in 320, we saw it in 270, we saw it in 299, we'll see it in 693, we saw it, as we've already said, in 424. And you'll remember in 466, the same, when we come to it, in 466, you'll remember you'll come back to this poem again when we play that game. This is the way 466 reads. 'Tis little I could care for pearls who own the ample sea, or brooches when the emperor with rubies pelteth me, or gold, who am the prince of mines, or diamonds, when have I a diadem to fit a dome continual upon me. The Malay took the pearl, and then notice all the dashes here. Not dash, I dash. The Earl, notice the identification with the Earl. By the way, when we get to poem 704, we'll play the game of this Earl again, no matter how sweet. But when I'm Earl, won't you wish you'd spoken to that dull girl, trivial a word, just trivial a smile, but won't you wish you'd spared one when I'm Earl? I shan't need it then, crests will do, eagles on my buckles on my belt too, ermine my familiar gown, say sweet then, won't you wish you'd smiled just me upon. Again, the idea of the identification with the Earl, and yet notice I feared the sea too much, right? Unsanctified to touch. By the way, notice all of the twos, can I just say it that way in this poem? Notice the sound of T-O, from took to too much to touch, all the way through the poem. It's brilliant. Praying that I might be worthy. And again, this idea of unsanctified and then praying. Not legitimately accepting in terms of spirituality or religious terms. That I might be worthy. And of course, in the word worthy was swarthy in the next line. The destiny, which will take us back to poem 163. Go back and look at how we studied that word there. The swarthy fellow, now we're going from Malay to swarthy fellow, swam and bore my jewel home, back to 245 with jewel. And then to finish, home to the hut, and then the exclamation point. And of course, many have pointed out that Austin will take Sue after he weds her to live right next door at the Evergreens. And then she'll say it, what lot had I? The jewel, and we're back again to the jewel, got, born on a dusky breast. I had not deemed a vest of amber fit. In other words, there's this idea of who actually deserves Sue. Now, there's different ways people have read this line. Some have said that Emily is saying, I could have never had it. In other words, the other, in this case probably Austin, her brother, he was able to take it. I couldn't have taken it. Others have said, no, the way to read this is Emily is actually saying that diamond, that jewel, that pearl, I deserved it. It should have been with me. And then for the only time in her poetry, she'll use the word Negro. And of course, we're calling here from the Moor of Shakespeare's Othello. The Negro never knew. Austin never knew. I wooed it too. And her use of the word wooing here obviously makes us think of Odysseus and all those suitors who are wooing Penelope. To gain or be undone, alike to him. One, this notion that it really didn't matter. He never really had to go through the experience that I had to go through of risking everything for the possibility of the pearl. For him, it was all one. It is interesting the way the poem ends with the word one, because now, of course, this love triangle has become really not a love triangle, but rather Austin and Sue through marriage are one, and now where is Emily left out? Now, when we get to poem 538, we'll come back to some of this again. "'Tis true they shut me in the cold, but then themselves were warm, and could not know the feeling 'twas. Forget it, Lord, of them. Let not my witness hinder them in heavenly esteem. No paradise could be conferred through their beloved blame. The harm they did was short, and since myself who bore it do forgive them, even as myself, or else forgive not me." And then likewise, when we get to poem 631, we'll play a similar game. "Ourselves were wed one summer, dear, your vision was in June, and when your little lifetime failed, I wearied too of mine, and overtaken in the dark, where you had put me down by someone carrying a light, I too received the sign. 'Tis true, our futures different lay. Your cottage faced the sun, while oceans in the north must be on every side of mine. 'Tis true, your garden led the bloom, for mine in frosts were sown, and yet one summer we were queens, but you were crowned in June." This longing, this intense longing for something that she will never be able to possess. I think the point she's making here is that it is hard to watch another take what you feel is actually yours alone. At 2b, well, the syntax is amazing here, the way it does break down. One scholar has called it, quote, breathless, disconnected quality, end quote. And I think that at 3a, we've already mentioned the Browning. We also have many who have referenced, scholars who have referenced, that maybe Thomas de Quincey's Confessions of an Opium Eater and the Malay that's mentioned there is as well possible. We obviously can think about any number of titles where you don't get the thing that you long to get, and you kind of live with that, and you try not to be resentful of that, and it obviously takes us to 3b. A time in your life when you lost out, when you wanted something so badly and then you got to watch somebody else have it, and especially if it was somebody who you were close to, the way in which Emily continues to challenge us. I'm hopeful that she's doing that for you as well. Thank you.